What's up, you guys? Welcome to Divine Time. I'm your host, is Divine, Izzy Divine, and I am coming at you live. Today's topic, I'm not really sure what topic I wanted to do today. I was speaking to some people while I was at a recent event that I went to, and we kind of had some of the same things in common from different belief systems and things of that nature. But one thing I had to ask is, you know, why are we black? What is black, and why do we represent that, or why do we, affiliate ourselves with this, and why are we the only people on the planet that still affiliate with a color? I mean, this has been a long term thing that's been plaguing what we consider to be our people for a minute. But what makes us a people? What makes us a people? Is it because we have the same color? And if so, why is it that so many other people all over the globe don't affiliate each other based on color? Why are there wars with people of similar color? And why don't they address or produce or promote themselves in that manner as if they live their lives based on the color, so, as we do? I grew up in the black or African American, for lack of a better word, community, and it's always been a thing in the community where we have been pushed to present or perceive ourselves as a group or as some form of family or connected unit based on solely our color and the plight that we are been told that we have been shared, being the transatlantic slave trade. So the fact that we relate to these things, and the fact that we push these narratives as if we are a community or a people, always baffles me. And I made this um, podcast because I wanted to start addressing some of those narratives. Who are we as a people? How do we relate? Why do we consider ourselves to be family or even connected in any way, when the only things that really connect us as a people are the plight that we shared? And do we want to keep being referred to or, associated with the negative connotations of that plight? Or do we want to grow and be collectivized as a actual people and or nation? And those are the things that kind of, I wanted to touch on today. um, I noticed that so many people in our communities, we tend to draw toward religions, toward what we perceive as ways of life, whether it be Hebrew Israelites or 5%ers or Christians or Muslims or whatever it is that we choose to gravitate toward. Now, a lot of people have chosen in our communities to, uh, you know, back off of those and just choose to be what they perceive as spiritual. Uh, Either way, we have always had some kind of a grasp toward the spiritual nature of things and toward the unseen, and we've always had that as a shadow over us, whether it be a positive or negative, or whether you can look at it as a shadow or an umbrella. But the end result is something that's been very prevalent in our communities. So the question is, if we're black, and all of us are black, whether we come from Africa or here in America as African Americans, then we have to start to ask, what resources do we as African Americans provide to the world that allows or disallows them that makes us valuable, that disallows them to treat us certain ways or do certain things to us? And because as black people, we don't possess a land, we don't possess a language that is of our own, we don't possess any specific culture that is of our own, except that predates slavery. And the reality of it is that idealism in itself is a major problem. The fact that I don't really relate to being black, I don't relate to being to the plight of blacks, and neither do many of us anymore due to the fact that we can't really recall slavery. It's not something that is right fresh on our memory. It's not something that we can look at and go, this is something that I remember, running from the master and all this type of stuff. So the fact that we no longer have that connection is another division that is separating us as what we perceive to be a community or a people. When you look at other communities, they are collectivized and connected through their common bloodline. Not only do they have some ancestor that they can all relate to directly, not just all of us relating to the general principles of what we perceive as positive things coming from the motherland. Africa in itself is a continent, not a country. And because of that, there are so many different avenues in Africa. There's so many different countries and cultures within that, in the continent of Africa, that have nothing to do with one another and or are very different from one another. So the fact that we would collectivize them or put them into a color when they in themselves have disagreements, arguments, and even wars amongst themselves, as all people all over the world do, explains and also shows us to, that we have some kind of lack when it comes to our definition and, actual specification of who we are as a people. So, what kind of black are you? When we say we're black, what region do you come from? What traditions, what cultures come with that? When you talk about white people, you're talking about a people that are diverse in many avenues. You have Czechoslovakian, Polish, Russian, Italian, all of the French, German, and the list goes on. And all of these people are considered to be white people, as we would consider them. But all of them did not have a hand in slavery. All of them don't necessarily have to do with the plight that we suffered, if we suffered that plight, if we could even connect ourselves to those specific slaves. Because a lot of us may not realize that we may have ancestors that come from Europe. We may have ancestors that actually come from here in America and never actually were slaves, but were indigenous to this region and still had this same color. So the fact that we would perceive ourselves as a people based on our color really diminishes from the value of the people itself when we don't individualize ourselves into a specific culture, meaning that what portion did your people give to the world? Whether you were the scholars of our people, if we were a people, excuse me, or whether you were the scientists, or whether you were the blacksmiths, or whether you were predominant in war, or whether you were just, the greatest of whatever your people were, theologists, or whatever. So writers, poets, there's so many different avenues and so many different arts that come from different um, communities of people that may look similar, may look almost identical, but have totally different cultural, you know, um, specifications. So the facts that we, as quote unquote black people or African Americans, have been lumped up into one category, which up until now we've had to live our lives, live in this idealism that we are one people, that we are not different, that we have no differences, that we have no special characteristics, when they can see the differences in Africans of today. When we look at the Africans that actually come from the motherland, that actually come from the different countries in Africa, we can see the differences and the pride that comes with those differences. As of today, we hear them arguing about whose jollof rice is better. When now that we've gotten more into, Afro beats, which brought us into more of the African culture, now that we've gotten more into, the orishas and things of that nature, you hear more African Americans speaking more about the ancestors, things of that nature, really relating to specific cultural idealisms that come from specific regions of Africa, not even knowing if they're from those regions. And that part of the problem is you can't be respected taking other people's ideas. You have to have your own. And the fact that we do not connect to anything that predates slavery is the problem. It's important for us to start to look into our history, start to collectivize as not only a people, but communities of groups of people with different backgrounds and have a basic understanding or try to connect better with our origin. That would include a land and our original languages, which may not have anything to do with each other, although we may look similar. There were some people that were kings and queens, but we had other people who did not have that belief system of kings and queens within that region, in their region, or their tribes within, what we consider to be Africa today. So what is Africa today was not the same before the whole migration and European invasions and stuff of that nature. So the fact that we still look at things from that perspective and have not connected ourselves to what we would be owed or what we own or independently as the tribes that we owned regions, we had portions, we had blood ties to certain things that gave value to this day, that may be valuable to this day. And the fact that these people have divided all of our property and then made us forced into this idealism that we're all one people, so that we wouldn't be able to even collect our resources, wouldn't even know the value of our resources, while the rest of the world is trading resources, and that is the value of the rest of the world, or each independent place in the world, or people, would be based on the resources that they had to trade on the open market to the rest of the world. And as of now, African Americans, the only resource African Americans represent or present to the world is entertainment. We are the minstrels to the world. So we run around, we dance, we sing, we play games, we play ball, we do everything to entertain others. And for the most part, that's the only representation they show you in a successful African American. So the fact that we keep presenting ourselves as black, accepting being black, and not ever going back to our original origin or anything that connects to a land, a language, and a connected bloodline or blood relative, would actually make us seem ignorant to the rest of the world, who still to this day relate to their ancestral lineage. And they don't just connect it to the entire, they don't connect it to, the entire, their entire continent. They connected to their specific culture and community and country. So us as black people, we need to start either collectivizing and separating into specific tribes of African Americans or whatever we are, or at least establish some differences within our communities of the types of African Americans that there are, because there are different types. Some of us classified as black, African American, and Negro, or nigger. You know what I'm saying? We'll classify those stages of thinking in the American community, but still have not designated ourselves into any specific groups, into any specific things that could be recognized not only by the rest of the rest of the world, but actual other cultures. So now we have been now recognized in a manner where we've been represented by things such as hip hop, where we've been represented by our deeds and actions as far as entertaining the world, rather than representing ourselves as a people. If we are that a people, then what connects us as a people? What makes us a people besides just looking at our general skin color? Because you have people from all over the world with different pigmentations, and they definitely don't necessarily look at themselves as brothers and sisters. So the fact that we all connect, or are expected to connect, or to be viewed as brothers and sisters, only based on our skin color or pigmentation, is an ignorance that we suffering from. And it gives us the limitation of not having the resources that give us the power to actually have some say in what happens to us in the world. And this is giving us is the reason why we are able to be treated the way we are on a regular basis by even our old captors, and even the rest of the world today, who tend to look down on African Americans on a regular basis. And in most communities and most cultures, we're talked down on, whether they're behind closed doors, whether they acknowledge it or not. And it's because of our lack of the connection that we have to our actual culture. And since we're only represented by things like hip hop, which which can be manipulated, which can be infiltrated. This is the reason why now you have so many white rappers and different, not that, whatever the culture rap, they, but that just goes to show you that you can't just join being Chinese. You can't just join being, Taiwanese, or you can't just join being, Indian from India, or you can't just join being Sudanese or Nigerian. But they can say, I accept you as a brother, but am I actually a Nigerian now, or am I just a, you know, you know, a official member, or if I've been brought in as an extra in what is, without being an actual member of the family, I'm almost a stepchild or something to that effect. The reality of it is, without claiming your actual bloodline, you claim no land. And without claiming land, you claim no specific resource. So if you're from a specific place like Nigeria, who has rich in gold and minerals and all the things that they have, they are able to then trade their worth in the open market, fight for their land, go to war to protect their people, their land, and their substance. And as long as we, as Black people or African Americans, continue to live our lives in America without claiming some specific land, some specific resources that we can trade on the open market of the world, then we have no intrinsic value, which in turn is the reason why we're able to be treated the way we are, and we can't even argue our point in world court because we have no representation. Who's the ambassador of Black? Hmm? Who's the representator of all of us that we can all agree represents us as a people, or at least is on paper the representation of us as a people? Who's the national symbol for Black? Can we look at a person like Obama as a representation for us all? Can we look at the rappers that come out, such as Killer Mike or T.I., who try to give us as much positive representation as possible, but are they the actual representation that we all have agreed to be the voice of our people? This is the thing that can't be done when you don't have a specific connection as a people. What makes us a people besides our color? This is what we have to strengthen, and this is what we want to start getting into. And this is the thing that I thought was most prevalent to bring to the attention, because I don't really hear many people talking about this thing. I hear everyone talking about nationalism as far as what religion they follow or what way of life or culture they believe is best for you to follow, but they don't necessarily speak, or we don't necessarily always speak about who we are and how we are relative. How, in what ways, in what formats, in what, because I see so many Black folk, for lack of a better word, us African Americans, and we relate to everything. As we see behind me, you see the Egyptology, you see a lot of Egyptian symbols. We all want to relate to Egypt, but how can a whole nation of people, how did all of us get transported from all these different places if we came from this slave trade? Do you really think that they stopped and said, okay, all the Egyptians only, we only going to take Egyptians, everybody else, you're not welcome here? You know what I'm saying? So, or we're only going to take we're not going to take no cannibals, none of the cannibals. If you eat people, step to the side. We're not going to take none of y'all. We only going to take the people as, that don't eat people, So, or the warrior tribe and versus, or the meat eaters versus the plant eaters, or all of these are engulfed in one people, which is now being called African American, which in turn destroys the individual growth of those people, which in turn destroys the individual value that those people presented to the world before they were stripped of their identity. And this is what has to be returned. And without that being returned, we're really not growing that far. We're accepting the fact that we're making more money, but the money still has white faces on it. These faces do not the money does not represent any resource. The resource is still backed by the same people who's enslaved you forever. This is how Kanye West could go from a multi-billionaire to a couple hundred million overnight, because the money means nothing. So the fact that we still think we're growing because we've gotten a little bit of money thrown our way and better cars and better living conditions in the slave masters home really just shows you how easy it is to appease us as and take away our true heritage and who we are and our true identity. And in order to really trace our identity, in order to really figure out who we are, we have to start going back to our blood ties. And then you'll be able to look at the brother that's on the street next to you and go, oh, you have a similar grandmother or grandfather that we both care about, that we both have a similar, connection to. And that's what stops us from killing one another in the streets. That's what prevents us. The same thing that we lacked from the beginning when we lost our big mamas back in the days, as we began to migrate out of the church, which connected us, as we began to go into other because it was forced on us in the beginning, because there was so many other outlets that were negative, so many other parts of it that were negative. It pushed a lot of us away, and many of us sought other things as we grew and gathered other information and became more wise to the different backgrounds of the church. Some of us chose other outlets, and they may not have been as comfortable anymore, and they may have been able to be more comfortable with the things that are more prevalent to them or more connected to them. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the church or but the end result is that we have to separate to come together. We have to accept each other's differences as different peoples instead of accepting ourselves as one people. Looking at ourselves as one people limits us in the understanding of our differences and limits us in the acceptance of our differences. So all of us have to be one kind of black. If you ain't this real nigga, if you ain't that real bitch, if you ain't that OG, if you ain't this kind of black, then you get your black card revoked because you don't represent what all of us systematically have been taught to believe black is. And at this point, that name black has now become a negative connotation toward our people, because there is no positive coming from it that represents growth for us, or there's no way to separate us from any negative connotation, anything that is presented, whether it be the gangsterism or the hoodism, or all the things that we look at as negative, the ghettoism, or what we perceive in the ghetto as the negative things. We can't separate one from the other, so we tend to try to make a difference by calling one a nigga and the other one an African American, or one, I'm black, but I ain't that kind of black, or this kind of black, but there's no specific designation been made for what kind of black we are. Whereas, again, all other people all over the world share a common respect for each other's belief system. Even if they don't, they will go to war for their own culture. And the only culture us as African American blacks have and represent now is hip hop. So, okay, if that's our culture, then let's monopolize that. Let's control that. Let's start taking back our ability to give our entertainment to everyone for free. Let's get together and create some form of union or some form of services that we can then at some point sell to the rest of the world, because we do it the best, rather than allowing them to use us in their Olympics as if we represent them. They take from all other cultures and mesh it together and make themselves the greatest. But instead, why don't we as a people collectivize into independent? If there's one group of, or maybe there's a tribe that pushes out nothing but Jordans. Maybe there's a tribe that pushes out nothing but LeBron James. Maybe there's a tribe that pushes out nothing but these type of productive and progressive black greatness, whether it be in the entertainment world or in the world of science or education, or whatever it be. There's greatness, but that greatness can be harnessed. Like you know if you notice that when the brother Manute Bol first came out, they started to he was one of the tallest guys, who ever played in the NBA, and they started to look for more basketball players from where he was from, the small country and tribe that he was from, who tend to grow these larger people, and it's just their tribe. They just grow some of the tallest people on the planet, and that's a different kind of black than other kinds of black. So the fact that that exists shows that there are so many more, and that we should be more culturally diverse rather than expecting everyone to just be black. So again, I ask, what kind of black are you? And I think it's time for us to dig deeper into that and to be more structured in understanding what we're teaching our kids to be when we teach them to be black. What does that entail? What does that mean? And what kind of representation do we want to make if we are a community? And what kind of who and when will we choose representatives and step up in and be a nation like everyone else in the United Nations? If we choose not to be in the United Nations, at least we'll still be a nation. But we need to collectivize into something that is more productive than just your color. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Is Divine, and this has been Divine Time with your host, Izzy Divine. Uh, Check me out next time. Oh, and check me out on all platforms. You can check out my YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe. Um, and I'm going to be giving you a couple more jewels like this on a regular basis. We're going to be talking about other topics. If there's any topics you'd like to discuss, um, let's kick it. And if you have any insight to this topic, you want to go back on it and give me your insight to what you feel on it, it's definitely appreciated. So thanks again for tuning in, and we out of here. Welcome to the first episode of Divine Time with Is Divine. Peace.